My grandmother used to make the most amazing bundt cake. And if you've never heard of a bundt cake before, it gets its name from the tin that you use, which looks like a donut-shaped tin. Now, I don't have a bundt tin today, so I'm gonna make her recipe in a spring-formed tin. And I know a lot of you out there would have a spring-formed tin. What I liked about this bundt cake is the flavour combination that she made, which is a combination of mixed fruit and some nuts. Now these are slivered almonds and I'm going to roast them in the oven. The oven's on at 160 degrees and that's going to be in the oven for about 10 minutes. Just keep an eye on them because they'll go golden brown quite fast. While they're in the oven, we can get onto the fruit mix that my nan used to put in her bundt cake in a bowl. We'll add 375 grams of mixed fruit, and it's a combination of raisins, apricots, there's some dried orange in there, glacé cherries, sultanas. So the whole packet goes in. But you can absolutely mix this up depending on what type of dried fruit you like. Just make sure you chop it so it's quite fine. Now I'll rehydrate the dried fruit in a little bit of brandy. And we just want it to soak. Also some desiccated coconut, and to give it a real Christmas feel, some mixed spice can go in, along with some fresh ginger. So I'll finely grate some ginger in this. Now ideally you want to leave this for a good couple of hours so the fruit does really soften and take on the flavour of the brandy. So I've prepared one a little earlier so we can continue on with the cake. So I'll just leave this here and I'll swap that over to this one. And this is what it'll look like after a few hours. There won't be that much liquid left and we won't need that liquid anymore. It's done its job. Now before we use these, let's get on to the basis of this cake. In a mixer, I'll add softened butter. I'll need half of this butter because I'll keep the remaining butter for an icing later on. And then 150 grams of caster sugar. Now I'll cream this for about 5 minutes until it's really light and fluffy and the sugar is dissolved. Then I'll add 3 eggs, one at a time. Now I'm just adding the last egg and it's looking pretty good, so I'll turn the food processor off for a moment. I'll add a pinch of salt, particularly because we're adding fruit and coconut. We want to taste it, so the taste of that is going to come out because we've added a little bit of salt. Now I'll take the lid off and just scrape down the sides. This is looking fantastic. And now it's time to take those slivered almonds out of the oven. Ooh, they look good. Now we need to allow these to cool down for a few minutes because we don't want to add the hot nuts to the batter, which is at room temperature. And now let's add 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder and some flour and then sift it in. And by doing this, we're going to get a really nice light cake. All right, the lid can go back on and I'll just gently fold everything together before we start adding in the fruit and the nuts. Cake is done. We'll take out the whisk and scrape it down so we don't lose any of that batter. And then I'll just take that off. And now we can incorporate the fruit, leaving any of that liquid behind. We don't want it because it'll be too moist. It smells so good. You know, I've used brandy for this, but you can absolutely use some rum. It's a fantastic alternative. And now I'll add the toasted nuts that have cooled down. And just with a spatula, I'll fold all of the ingredients into that really light, delicate batter. You can add many different things to this. Some chopped chips would be fantastic, some more coconut if you like. Even a little bit of orange zest is fantastic for this. Now for the tin, we've lined a spring-formed tin, 22 centimetres with a little bit of baking paper. I'll place that on the tray that we roasted the nuts in, and then we'll place the cake mixture in. And this goes into the oven, 160 degrees for about 35 minutes to 40 minutes. Just keep an eye on it. If a skewer is inserted in the centre and it comes out clean, it's ready. Now Now the cake has come out of the oven and I've allowed it to cool completely on a wire rack. Now it's time to make a really delicious buttercream frosting. The rest of the butter that I reserved can go into a food processor. It's really, really soft, which is good for a buttercream recipe, along with lots of icing, sugar, and then I like to add a little bit of a zing with some lime zest and a little bit of its juice. So grating that straight into the bowl. So all of those essential oils of the lime go in there too. Shake that off, and then just with a small knife, I'll cut that in half, and then I'll squeeze a little bit of that lime juice in. You don't want to add too much liquid to this, so just a few drops of that lime juice. Lid goes on, and then I'll whip this for about 1 minute till it becomes really light and fluffy. All right, buttercream is done. Wow, it looks sensational. I'll take out the whisk. I'll just have a taste. Absolutely delicious. Look at that. See how gorgeous that is? Now I'll place a generous amount onto the cake and then just spread it out. You don't have to go all the way to the end. And then you can dress this with whatever you like. You can go all out, or you can just keep it as is. I'm going to go all out with lots of those toasted slivered almonds, some coconut, so this is just flakes of coconut that I toasted in the oven, and then for some strawberries. These strawberries are so irresistible, so I had to add them too, and just place them in and around on top, glue them almost to the frosting, let them just sit in the nest of coconut. And then I have these gorgeous little flowers, and I thought it would look just extra special with a few of those on the top falling over the side. You know what? I think Gran will be pretty proud of this fruit cake. It looks delicious. I know it tastes delicious too.